Okay, perfect. So, hi everybody, welcome. My name is Cindy Alonso. If you were in the last workshop, I am the Academic Support Advisor at Oaks, and today's topic is how to manage your time and focus. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now so that we can see all together the presentation that I have. So, I'm going to do that. Okay, give me another thumbs up if you can see the screen of the presentation. Okay, perfect. So as we're going about the presentation, if any of you have any questions or you want to chat or say anything in the chat box, you can use the chat box, or you can also use the reactions to raise your hand, and I will answer your question. So, okay, perfect. So let's get started. Okay, so today's topic is time management. So there are so many aspects of time management and productivity. And as I was getting ready for this presentation, I kept going back and forth about all the things that we usually talk about. And I wanted to kind of focus on very specific aspects of it that I think are really important. So it is very human of us to struggle with time management, but there are certain factors that I think are really important to look at in order for us to be our most productive self. So this pandemic, it really has affected our self-motivation. And I think that for a lot of us, it's become really difficult to gain the energy to complete tasks and just kind of go about our everyday tasks amongst all of what's happening. So it's really hard to do everything that we're responsible for, and we know what we have to do, but the motivation isn't really there. And also the energy that we need to get it done isn't there as well. So this all plays a role into how we need to manage our time. So I wanted this to be our first point, because time management is not solely it's not solely the core issue that we're struggling with when we're trying to be productive and to manage our time. And I say this from experience because I personally battle with managing my time. And if you ask my family friends, they will tell you that that's the truth, that I really struggle with that. And I realized that not so long ago, just recently, that it isn't really my time management, it's more of my energy management. So it's been really eye-opening to think about how I can be my most productive self when I talk about my energy and motivation versus timing everything out. So that's what I want to focus on today, because I know it's been difficult being at home, and there's so many distractions. So definitely how becoming self-aware of what we're currently feeling, what our motivations are, what brings you the most energy, and also how to plan ahead. They're all very important factors that we need to keep in mind when we want to be productive and accomplish our goals. So I want to dive into those factors so that we can see how they can work for us. Okay. So those are the three things. And like I mentioned, it's not about time itself. So it's about motivation, energy, and planning. So number one is motivation. So checking in with yourself. Self-awareness it's very key. Okay. It's a lot of times we try to give ourselves tips on how to manage things, but it's not really about following the list. It's really about checking in with how you're feeling. Where are you at? What place are you in emotionally and mentally? So are you constantly feeling overwhelmed and drained? Do you know what it is that you have to do, but you just can't seem to find the motivation to complete it, or maybe to even start your tasks that you have to complete? And those are really important questions to ask yourself, because I mean, if you keep making lists and you just don't check them off, that's not really the issue. It's really what else is happening that's really becoming a barrier for you to complete what you really have to do. So that's number one, checking in with yourself. And number two, so evaluating your goals. What is your why? So taking some time to think about why it is that you're doing is hard sometimes, especially when there's so much going on, and there are things that are distracting you. And when we're really trying to focus on a very specific task, or there's so many pressures from professors, there's pressures from family, there's pressures for very specific things. It's hard for us to go outside of that and think about the grander scheme of things. Why is it that we're doing all of this? Why is it worth it? So asking yourself that question, what is your why? Why are you in school? Why are you seeking a degree? And what is it that is motivating you to complete it? So taking the time to remind yourself, and not just reminding yourself, but to write them down is really important. And the part of writing it down may seem tedious to a lot of you because, oh, I have to write something else. And it's not really that, but writing your goals down is actually a really good moment for you to connect with yourself. It's a great time for you to reflect on your goals. And if you write them down, they're most likely to impact you in that moment than just by thinking about it and then letting it pass you by. So I encourage you, if you're in the presentation right now, I encourage you to pull out a piece of paper and pull out a pen so that you can write down a goal or two that we're going to go over with. So what is one of the great methods to do that is the SMART goals. So some of you may have already heard about this method. What does SMART stand for? So SMART goal stands for specific, measurable, achievable, and realistic and timely goals. So you want to make sure that you're not setting a goal that you don't think that may not be those things, because it'll be harder for you to accomplish them. So going off of this method is really helpful, and thinking about what is it that you really want to do. You know, what is your goal? And you can be specific. It can be a personal goal, it can be an academic goal, but you know, write it down. So how long is it going to take you, or how are you going to be able to track your success? Like, if you are creating this goal, how are you going to know that you're on track to completing that goal? And how are you going to know when you've actually reached it? So for example, if you're going to make a goal of, like, let's say a big goal is, I want to get good grades because I want to get into a specific graduate program. Okay, perfect. So you've made that goal. You want to get into a graduate program. That's an overarching goal. That's good. So when are you going to know you've reached it? When you have the GPA that you need. So then you want to be very specific about that. And how are you going to track your progress? One way you can do that is just make sure you're checking in with your advisor to make sure that you're on track with your degree and you're on track with the classes that you need and so on. So that's a way of tracking. Is this goal achievable? Can I really accomplish it? Do I have it in my power to make it happen? Basically, and not just you, but do you have the support that you need to accomplish this goal? Those are important things to keep in mind. Is it realistic? As long as it's something that you know that you can achieve, not just because we're not saying that you can achieve anything you set your mind to, because obviously that's important to keep in mind. You have to have confidence, but it's just a matter of the time and the resources that you have. You want to make sure you have them enough to accomplish it. Sorry, 1 second as I admit somebody. Okay, awesome. All right. So, and the last part is the last two, realistic and timely. So you want to make sure it's time specific and you give yourself a date. So if you're going to have this goal, when are you going to accomplish it by? If you want to graduate, then literally write down the date of when graduation is, if that's what's missing with you. But be very specific about setting your goals. This is going to help you think about your why, and that'll bring a little bit more motivation about why you're doing what you're doing and why this is so hard. Because when you're in a math problem or you're studying for an exam and you're just not getting it, it's really easy to just focus on that one problem and you lack motivation and you just don't want to keep doing it. But reminding you of yourself of your goals can really help. Okay, another thing that's really important is making time for things that you love and enjoy. So there's two things that I feel are important to keep in mind with this. One thing is, you might be procrastinating so much that you're doing things that you love and enjoy way too much, and you're just not paying enough attention to school. The other part is you are too overwhelmed and anxious thinking about school, and you're caught up in distractions and things that are wasting your time, that you're not being productive ever. Not when you're wasting your time or when you're actually trying to do your homework. So the tip here is to be intentional about the things that you love and enjoy. Excuse me. So if you're going to do something that you like reading a book or spending time with family, and right now, obviously via FaceTime or at home, be very intentional about what you're going to do and when you're going to do it versus just doing it whenever or being constantly worried about everything else that you don't make. So making, and this is going to help you with your motivation, because when you're doing something that you enjoy, your body kind of gets a boost. So um, giving time for yourself is really important. Does anybody have questions about the first part? Okay, number two. Number two is energy. So I feel like this is very much the core of the presentation, and I really want you guys to pay close attention to this, because definitely when it comes to time, we do try and make lists and things like that. But there are times in the day when we do have more energy than other times of the day. And it's so important that we are very aware of when those times are. So questions to ask yourself: what time of the day am I feeling my best? When do I feel like I'm my most productive self? And this is different for everybody. So what does it mean for you? And along with that question, are you a night owl or are you an early bird? So do you tend to stay up super late and that's when you tend to be productive? Or do you get up really early and you have to be in bed by a certain amount of time? Everyone's different. So which one are you? So now we're going to go into how to know how to kind of, I think there's one missing. There it is. So how do we identify what our energy levels are and how do we use them for our advantage? So we all have a natural 24-hour clock that actually syncs with our energy levels. And it's called the circadian rhythm. So it's a natural clock that basically cues your energy levels based on the light and the darkness. So basically, hence that we sleep when it is dark outside. It's our natural clock saying our melatonin is increasing at night because there's no light, meaning that our brain is telling our body, okay, it's time to sleep, and then the light telling our body it's time to wake up. Now, back in the day, it was easier, right? Because when the sun came up, that's when you worked. The sun came down, you don't work. There wasn't any much technology. Now that there's technology, we're constantly exposed to light all the time, especially now. We're constantly in front of a screen. You're on your TV, you're on your computer, you're on your phones, your iPads, and our body, what it does is that it starts thinking and it starts creating patterns because of that. So it's really important to understand what kind of patterns we are, our bodies are getting into, and how do we think it's productive or not for us. And basically, it's really important to think about this, because this is how you create healthy or unhealthy patterns. So if you're eating at a certain time or sleeping at a certain time, you have to think about, are those healthy times? Or are those healthy patterns? Do I eat breakfast at a certain time or do I just eat whenever? All of that affects your energy, and you want to be very aware of that, because that might be the reason why you just don't feel like doing anything. So having a specific routine or getting into a pattern that works for you is something that you might want to do. So these are 4 levels that I created, and that's just not, I didn't create them, I just called them that. You can call them whatever you want, but I thought it would be helpful to think about them this way, just so that you can keep in mind what your energy levels are. So on fire would be when you're the most productive and you can really just get as much done as you possibly can. and vibrant, you're still being productive, but maybe not as much. And you're having a hard time giving your full best, but you can still, you're still doing a good job. Cruise control comes around and you're you're cruising. You can't really concentrate. Maybe you're doing things because you have to, and critical thinking is really not part of that part of your day. So, and burnt out is just, you can't. You're sleepy, you're tired, you want to nap, you want to sleep, and your body is basically not focused at all. So I put those here because we usually do an activity that we would have done together where you would draw your 24-hour circle and then you would identify what times you are on fire, what times you're on cruise control, so that way it makes a little bit more sense to you when you have the most energy. So just to get a little participation on here, who here would say they're a night owl? Use the thumbs up if you think you're a night owl. Okay, not a lot of you. Okay, there's more. Okay, now I'm seeing most of you are night owls. Good. Okay, how many of you are early birds? I think I have one early bird. Okay, props to you, early bird. It's awesome. Early routines are the best. Okay, so it's good. You all kind of have an idea of what your routines look like. So I do encourage you to do this and do it a little bit more in depth so that you kind of understand a little bit better about more of your energy levels. So whenever you have a chance, I encourage it highly. So some tips now that you know about your energy, once you've identified it, some tips are obviously using it to your advantage, which is what we went over, but staying focused. Once you know when you have the most energy throughout the day, it's time to focus. So you want to make sure you're on top of things. You put away your phones. You are in a place where you don't get as distracted, and it's basically game time. You don't you want to be as efficient as possible during those times. So schedule your most important and maybe even your most daunting tasks to the time that you have the most energy, so then you can actually get them. So the other tip is to create momentum. One tip that I think really works with a lot of students that have expressed to me is starting off with one of your easiest tasks. So maybe you have to do a reflection on something and it's like a paragraph, or it's a quick problem and you know how to do it, and it's just like, oh, I have to get it done. I just don't want to, but you know how to do it, and you know that once you do it, it's going to be fast and it's going to be easy. So then just get it done. Check off that one item off your list, and what it does is that it creates momentum. So once you did that thing that you didn't really want to do, but it was easy, now you kind of, what it does, it helps you feel like you can do it. Like, oh, I can do this. I have the energy to, and it kind of boosts your energy a little bit in itself. So start off by doing that, and now it'll help you tackle the harder tasks. The other one is to take breaks. So taking breaks is definitely really important, because once you have reached the peak of your focus, you kind of find yourself dozing off. So the moment you're like, oh, I'm getting distracted, I'm dozing off, I'm not really paying attention anymore to what I'm doing, it's time for you to take a break. And that's okay. Sometimes it happens before you wanted to, or sometimes you're taking more time focused and you're going over what you planned, and that's okay. Whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be a very rigid schedule. It's just a matter of, you want to kind of use your energy to your advantage at this point. So this is different for everyone. Maybe you're capable of being focused for 60 minutes, or maybe you can even go 90 whole minutes of just studying and getting things done. Or maybe it's just 30 minutes, and that's okay. It depends on you. The important thing to do here is to check in with yourself. So check in with yourself consistently. Make sure that you're giving your task the best of you, and that if you're not, then you give yourself the break that you need and you just step away. So Self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. So am I focusing? Am I dozing off? Nope, it's time to take a break. So the suggested times for studying and breaks are around 40. Like if you're going to study for 45 to 50 minutes, then you want to give yourself at least a 15-minute break. 10 to 15 is the suggested time. If you're going to take 25 to 30 minutes, then 5 minutes is usually enough, and then you just jump back on and you do it again. 3 times of this for this 50-minute terms, or if you want to do it 30-minute increments, you can do it a little bit longer, but making sure you give yourself breaks. And things that you can do in your break is make sure you move around, do some jumping jacks or something to get your blood flowing if you feel like you're really losing focus. Okay, so now that we went over the first two, which is self-motivation, and then it was energy. Now it's time to plan. So this is the part that most of us tend to focus on and when it comes to time management. And I left this for last because if you don't have the other two things set, then it's really hard for you to do this to the best of your ability. So now that you know when it's the best time for you to study, when you have energy, you found things that motivate you to kind of keep you going, it's time to plan it out. So I know that this is, let me see if I have oh, I do. So it's like timing out your week. So a lot of people don't like doing this, and a lot of people love doing this. It's creating things by the hour and creating a weekly schedule that's going to show you when you're going to do what. So obviously there's going to be things that you can't control, like your class time. You have to be in class a certain amount of time, and unfortunately you're just going to have to prepare for those times. So if you know that you're not going to have a lot of energy during your A&P class or during your humanities class, then you're going to want to prepare, and maybe it means you have a cup of coffee or you have something that's going to keep you awake, or you make sure that you get up more and you move around during that period of time so that your body feels more awake. But doing things that are going to help you get through it is really important when you can't really prevent when you're doing it. So for the rest of your time that you can control, you want to set it up for success. So do not schedule to study for A&P for 4 hours when you know you're going to be super tired and you're falling asleep and drooling all over your desk. Like, that's not worth it. So don't study at those times. And if we procrastinate, then we can't really control that. Because at the end, you just have to study, and then it's really hard because you can't really control your energy levels, and you can't take the nap that you need or the break that you need because you're cramming. So if you're planning ahead, you can prevent that more. But scheduling it ahead is something that can really work. Another useful thing that the scheduling is for is writing everything that you have to do for the week, for the quarter. So at the beginning of the quarter is kind of creating a template for yourself where you can be mindful of how many hours you have to put towards something, because everything tends to be at the same schedule. Like, you know, you're going to have class from 1 to 3, Monday and Wednesday. So then why write it down every week? A lot of people don't like to do that. And if you do, that's great. But if you don't, then it's just creating a template so that you can be aware every week of how many hours should I be putting into to study for math or for my science class. And at the end of the week, you can look back and say, I did not study enough at all. Like, you can reflect back and say, I should have studied a certain amount of hours and I didn't. So then you can try and catch up and then make sure you plan for a better week. So this could be really helpful for that. So the other tip for planning is to choose your planner. It really depends. Everybody's different. I love my planner. I don't have it with me right here, but I love writing things down, and I love checking off the boxes with my, colorful pens and markers. And if you don't like to do that, then you don't have to. You can always use your phone. So it really depends. So who here would choose the planner to write it down? Do a thumbs up if you like the planner method. Okay, I see a couple of you that like the planner, not too many. Okay, how many of you like to do the calendar app or do something on your phone? Okay, so the majority of you do like to use your phones, which is great. Um, the iPhones and the Androids now have a lot of great features, and you can color code everything. You can color code your study times. You can color code, certain appointments and your class times, things like that. And putting it down in your calendar might seem like, oh, I already know that I have to go at this time. Like I think, I'm gonna remember when to do it. But writing it down can be really, really helpful. It's really easy for us to believe that we're superhuman and that just because someone told us something or like someone said you have a test or the teacher said you have a test that you're just going to remember. And the reality is that we are not superhuman. And amongst all the things that you have to do, you are most likely to forget something if you don't write it down. So write it down. If it's also really helpful, I hear, to take your syllabi at the beginning of the quarter. So then what you do is basically you highlight all your due dates, all your important tasks and what you have to do, and plug them into your planner or your calendar. So that way, throughout the quarter, when you check in with your calendar or with your planner, then it's there's a less of a chance that you're going to forget what you have to do. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And even if you didn't do it at the beginning of the quarter and it's like halfway there, it's okay. You can still do it. So take time to plan out the rest of the quarter that's left. It's better than not planning at all. So definitely keep that in mind and choose whatever method works for you. Some people I hear start a planner. I used to do this all the time. I started a planner and I wrote in the first 2 pages and I got so excited. I used all these great markers, did not touch it for like the whole maybe year. I'm not even kidding. It's like, I completely wasted a whole planner for no reason. And the thing is, if it doesn't work for you, then you have to check in like, well, the planner didn't work for me. What else works for me? Or maybe it does work for you, but you weren't doing it with the right intention, or you just didn't seem to want to, like you weren't motivated enough to do it. So check in with yourself, whatever works for you, definitely do that. Try different methods. If one didn't work, try another one. It's really trial and error at this point. So don't feel bad if it didn't work and you just weren't productive. Just try something else. And the last thing that I wanted to point out, which I don't think I made a slide for, is just creating to-do lists. So start your day by creating a to-do list that you think is going to be helpful. So maybe you like to do that on a weekly basis. Start off your week by creating a to-do list of all the things that you know you have to do that week. I have a test on Thursday. That means I have to study this many hours before that test. I also have a paper due Wednesday. When am I going to make time to write that paper? And when am I going to make time to study for the test Thursday? So if you plan it out in advance, it's really going to give you a higher chance that you're going to do it. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind is that if you schedule something and you don't follow it to a T, then that's okay. Like I said, we're not superhuman, so give yourself grace. And if you don't do it the way that you wrote it down, it's okay. It's just a good time for you to reflect on why you didn't do it, what's something that works better, and maybe change it up a little bit so that next time you can be more productive. Okay, so to summarize, the 3 tips were self-motivation. So check in with yourself and your goals, right? What is your why and why are you doing this? Number 2, what are your energy levels? What are the best times of the day for you to be most productive? And plan ahead. Number 3, based on those things, based on when you have the most energy. So of all those things, I just want you to keep in mind that self-awareness is key. So keep in mind what works for you, get to know yourself a little bit better, look into how you know what you want to accomplish, and don't compare yourself too much to other people, because maybe something works for someone else and it doesn't work for you, and that's definitely okay. So whatever works for you is good. But that's basically all I have for you today. I have different sheets that can help you if you want to do SMART goals. If you need a weekly timesheet, I have that as well. So if you want to email me, I can send it to you. And we can also post it in the website for you to upload them. We haven't posted them yet, so just keep an eye out for that. It should be out soon. But other than that, does anybody have any questions before I finish today's meeting? No questions. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and I'm wishing you an awesome week. Hang in there, and if you need anything, please feel free to reach out, and you got this, okay? All right, bye, everybody.